Wait, you wait. There you
Welcome
go.
to Alan Skorsky Reports. I'm Alan Skorsky. To those of us in the hawkishly pro-Israel camp, the name Hillel Fuld is well known as an unapologetic supporter of Israel and the Jewish people. But this past June, the government of Australia quite possibly made Hillel Fuld the most prominent Jew on the planet. Invited to speak at a fundraiser from Magen David Adom about how Israel is a world leader in high-tech innovation, the Australian government, the Department of Home Affairs, revoked his visa on the grounds that he might use the platform to incite hatred against the Islamic community, based on his social media commentary about the Israel-Hamas war. Now, just to gain a little perspective of what life is like for Jews in Australia, living under a government so concerned about public discourse and harmony, the country experienced more than 2,000 anti-Jewish incidents between October 23rd and October 2024, including shul and Jewish day school bombings. And don't forget about the 2 Muslim nurses who bragged on social media about killing or wanting to kill Jewish patients. Under Prime Minister Albanese, Australia has adopted a more critical tone towards Israel in international forums. His government supported a UN General Assembly resolution in December that called on Israel to end what it described as its unlawful presence in the occupied Palestinian territory, including Eastern Jerusalem. Today's guest is the most famous Jew on the planet, dubbed Israel's top marketer, journalist, and social influencer, Hillel Fuld. Hillel works with leading tech entrepreneurs, investors, and visionaries to accompany them on their journey from idea to revenue. Since the war began on October 7th, Hillel has been dedicated to utilizing his skills, his team, and connections and abilities to promote the positive message of Israel and the Jewish people and combating anti-Semitism through social engagement. Hillel also hosts the Tech to Tanks podcast. Hillel, we've been waiting to get you for a long time. We got you during the 9 days. Great timing. It's great to have you.
Thank you, my friend. I don't know about the most famous Jew in the world. That no one's ever called me that, but I'll take it and I'll pretend that that's even remotely true.
You know, and you're using it for great things. So there's just so much to talk about, from why Australia did what they did, the hypocrisy and double standard, the denying you of your free speech rights, because Australia is a democracy. And all of this actually ties in to a recent video you made about making Aliyah, because the writing is on the wall. So first, let's talk about Australia. This is a government who, under the previous government, was very pro-Israel. Just like in Canada, before Justin Trudeau and the guy they have now, Carney, they had Stephen Harper. And in the UK, when the Tories were in power. So this is happening all over the world. Here in New York City, there's a mayoral race where we have an unabashed, hardcore Islamo-Marxist/Nazi who's in the lead. So now, with all of this going on, first tell us what happened to you exactly with the Australia. As I said in the monologue, you were invited to speak to Magen David, not some kahana or a radical, pro-Israel organization.
Right. So it was Friday morning. I was supposed to fly out on Tuesday and got an email from the Australian government letting me know that they revoked my visa. 3 days before that, someone had sent me a tweet from a very small Twitter account that said, "Oh, genocide supporter Hillel Fuld's coming to Australia. Everyone contact immigration, make sure that we block him." I didn't make much of it because it was a tiny little account. But sure enough, I guess they got on someone's radar, because I got that email, and in the email it said, "We are revoking your visa, and the reason is your Islamophobic and inflammatory tweets." And they included a document with some examples of those inflammatory tweets. And of course, they were anything but inflammatory. I mean, one of them was me declaring, explaining that there was no massacre in the humanitarian zone in Gaza, something that the Washington Post and other mainstream media outlets reported the day after they retracted that article, and they admitted that they had lied. So my tweet was, of course, accurate. That was one example. Another example is when I spoke about the global plague called radical Islam. Another one is when I talked about the fact that, there are anywhere between 1.8, 2 billion Muslims in the world. And according to all available data, 10 to 15% of them are radicalized, which means that we have hundreds of millions of people dedicated to the destruction of the West. And I said, the fear of that is not irrational. So to call it a phobia is inaccurate. It's not irrational to fear a religion that has given birth to 180 million fundamentalists dedicated to my death and your death. Anyway, those are some examples. And yeah, so they revoked my visa. I went immediately and I appealed. I then contacted Ambassador Mike Huckabee, who's a friend, and I told him what's going on. I contacted Israel's foreign minister and a couple of other high up diplomats, and everyone worked on my behalf. Ambassador Huckabee wrote this amazing letter. And anyway, long story short, after that didn't yield any results, I then went to the media and it went very, very viral, hundreds of articles. And I really thought one of those avenues, or there were three, there was the appeal, there was the diplomacy, and there was the media. I thought for sure one of these three channels was going to yield results, but they did not. And they did not cancel, or they did not, cancel the, how do you say, revocation? I don't even know what the word is. They didn't reinstate my visa.
Uninvoke.
Right. Yeah, so that was nuts. And, I very much felt for the first time in my life like I was experiencing like 1930s Germany level anti-Semitism. And just when I thought it couldn't get more ludicrous and more offensive, the Australian government banned Kanye West and publicly made a comparison between me and Kanye West. On several occasions, Tony Burke said, just like we're banning Hillel Fuld for his Islamophobia, we're banning Ye for his anti-Semitism, as if we're the same. So it's beyond absurd, but I think it's a clear reflection of what's going on today in Western society and how, Western civilization as a whole has lost its moral compass and can't differentiate between what's right and what's wrong, what's good and what's evil. And it's tragic to see, but that's the reality. Of course, as an observant Jew, I believe things happen for a reason. And when that happened, I was upset, but I said, there's got to be some reason that this is happening. Fast forward about a week and the Iran war broke out. And if I had been in Australia, I would have been stuck in Australia for a very long time while my kids are in the bomb shelter, shielding themselves from ballistic missiles. So thank God they revoked my visa, because that would not have been pleasant. But yeah, that's the story. It was absolutely ridiculous. And, it's just very sad and tragic to see an amazing country like Australia completely lose its way.
So there were a couple of things, because I read a lot of different columns and I watched different videos of your interviews. And there were two things that I saw only mentioned in one place. One of them was that you received a message from, I guess, one of the Jewish groups there and you don't know where it came from initially, but they said that they would consider, or there might be a chance that they would rescind their ban if you promise to not talk about your brother. Right. And now, there's a part of me that wants to use Michael Rappaport's language, because when Michael Rappaport speaks, there is no mincing of words. There's no ambiguity. You know exactly what he's talking about.
Right.
So on the one hand, they say you can't do this, but which has nothing to do with what their original accusation was, that you're going to incite hatred.
Right. No, it's ridiculous. I mean, that part really just hit it home that it's pure anti-Semitism. Those that are watching, my older brother, Ari Fuld, was murdered in a terrorist attack 7 years ago. And I did receive a message from, an Australian politician who I was not told who they were, saying that if I promised not to mention Ari in my talks in Australia, they might consider canceling it and reinstating my visa, which is just... what word can I even use? It's beyond pathetic. So it's a sad state of affairs in Australia today.
Now, also one thing that I read, and again, I always saw it in one publication, and this is something that concerns me because I've been talking about this forever, that one of the groups that wrote to the government to ban you was a Jewish group.
That's right.
Now, again, I only saw that in one column, and that comes back to where we are here in America today. And I've been saying this for a long time, and it bothers me that I'm attacking other Jews. And now we're heard during the 9 days, and we keep hearing about sinas chinam, which was never really clearly defined. But we would not be where we are today, in my opinion, if not for left-wing Jews. We wouldn't have had a Barack Obama, we wouldn't have had Kamala Harris, and we sure as hell would not have had Mamzer Mamdani, in the lead here, running for mayor. So.
Well, I'm going to push back on that a little bit, because I do agree with the first thing that you said, which is we shouldn't throw other Jews under the bus. I agree with the sentiment of what you're saying, but let's, again, to play devil's advocate here, without leftist Jews, we wouldn't have the state of Israel. Ben Gurion was as left as it gets. So I hear what you're saying, but
Yeah,
I'm not comfortable cutting half of our
but he
nation off.
supported the creation of Israel, and they
Right.
weren't right until the governments. If Ben Gurion had written a letter saying, "block us from getting further," then I would say that he's as bad as they are. But okay, I'll because
No,
it's
it's
you, and
it's it's
I'll
it's a crazy thing. I mean,
yeah.
but here's the thing. So yeah, the account that I mentioned before, that was the original account that tweeted, asking people to report me, was indeed run by a Jew, total lunatic. But this is not a new phenomenon. I mean, we see this in literally every generation. We saw it in Egypt when 80% of the Israelites stayed back in Egypt, and we saw it in the desert where the spies didn't said not to go in. We always had Jews who didn't, who sided with the other side or the bad side, or and this is not, we had it in Germany, of course. We have it all the time. It's very sad to see. It always upsets me. I would say it upsets me a whole lot more than reading the anti-Semitism from our enemies when our own do it. Yesterday, an Israeli quote unquote human rights organization, I would not call them a human rights organization, called B'Tselem, which is, as far as I'm concerned, the most self-hating, it's just the most disgusting, vile organization I can even imagine.
Right.
These guys, what they do is they go and they try to get IDF soldiers all riled up, and then they bring cameramen and photographers to take videos of them. And they could spread them to the world. Look at these IDF soldiers. It's sick. Anyway, they put out a report yesterday that Israel's committing genocide in Gaza.
I
Like,
saw that.
like I don't. You could, whatever. I mean, it's a longer conversation, but don't you have any accountability for your people? Don't you realize the damage that you're causing? Like, okay, so they'll say, yeah, but we can't not speak up when there's genocide. Obviously, there's no genocide. It's one big lie, but it's very sad to see. And this is our reality. This has always been our reality.
Okay, so there's something else also that I want to get into a little bit deeper, because you're a very, very well-known influencer, and you're, again, incredible voice for Israel. So recently, Shabbos Kestenbaum had put out a tweet or something on Facebook about Israel's PR and what they need to do. It's all about Israel needs to have better speakers, more affluent, more polished speakers, and have a war that contrasts all this. But again, it brings me back to where we are today with the Jewish left, because we don't have anybody here in America stopping them. We want Israel to do all the work to protect their image, while we here in America have done nothing to prevent the blood libeling. We did nothing to stop what's going on at Columbia University. What you talk about in Australia, and here's another thing also I want to ask you about. We Jews have something called a Hillel Hashem, and that is, you wear a yarmulke, you do something in public that disgraces the name of God. It's a very, very big sin. Now, here's what's to me insane. Even if we Jews remain silent, we didn't advocate with everything that the Islamists and Palestinians are doing. Now, they don't have a concept of Hillel Allah, but what they are doing should not, I mean, you would think that if we acted half as bad as they do, we would turn the whole world against us. And yet, the more vile, the more behamish they act, the more sympathy and support they get from Western governments. And it's mind-boggling to me. In light of France, now Macron is going to recognize Palestine. They're pressuring Starmer and Britain to do the same thing. How many times have they been kicked in the you-know-what that they're saying we're going to recognize the people who want to bring us down? That's where I'm completely at odds.
Yeah, it's suicidal empathy, right? We see the West. Not only are we not recognizing, when I say we, I mean the West. Not only are we not recognizing the cancer that is radical Islam, but we're not only are we not recognizing it, but we're basically labeling anyone who does an Islamophobe. If I dare say that we have a big problem with radical Islam, I'm an Islamophobe. It's crazy. But we see France, we see the UK, we see Canada. These guys, they've become full-blown Islamic states, right? I mean, I saw yesterday a job. This is a true story. I saw this yesterday. I think it's true. I saw it on Twitter. I don't know. I didn't verify this, but I saw a job description for London, an official Sharia officer, or somebody that basically makes sure that no Sharia laws are broken in England. Whether it's true or not, it doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is, the mayor of London, the mayor of so many other cities in the UK are Muslims, and very proud Muslims, and very religious Muslims, and pretty radicalized. So it's a very sad state of affairs. But I tell myself every day, 10 times a day, when I see another lie being told about us or another, anti-Semitic attack, whatever it may be, I say, listen, this is not a man-made war. Nothing about this war makes any sense. So I know that God's running the show. I don't know why he's doing what he's doing, but I know he has a plan, and I refuse to let this bring me down, because if every single time something like this happens, I go down, I'll never get up.
Okay. Now, also something you'd spoken about in one of your videos, I believe it was in your why we need to make Aliyah videos, because the writing is on the wall. And I always draw this analogy, and I hate invoking Nazism or the Holocaust because it's so unique to our history. But I always say that what's happening today is worse than 1930s Germany. And because with them, I mean, again, it's evil, and you try to get into the head of an evil person. What they were advocating was for racial purity. They wanted the best and the strongest and the most Aryan for Germany. I get that. I mean, I don't get it, but I get it. What's happening today is, here in America, we are 5,000 miles away from Israel and that whole area. We're not being attacked by Americans who want a stronger America. We're being attacked by people who have come from a very far away, who hate America and hate the Jews, and yet they are being welcomed and lauded in universities, in the media, in the halls of Congress. This is so much worse, in my opinion, than what the Jews went through in Europe in the 1930s.
It's totally crazy. I mean, there's many things that could be said about that. For starters, let's not forget there were many Germans who saved Jews in Germany. There's not one Gazan who saved a single Jew. They were offered millions of dollars in a so-called genocide and starvation. They were offered millions of dollars to save Jews. Not one stepped up, not one. And let's not forget that the Nazis famously drank themselves to sleep because they were so ashamed of what they were doing. Hamas live streamed it. So, I'm not necessarily, I don't know if I believe in saying this guy's better or worse than the Nazis. Like you said, the Nazis and the Holocaust are very unique, but the comparison is so clear that it's hard not to make it.
Right. Now, there's also something else that I want to go back to. And again, it goes back to the video you made about making Aliyah, because the writing is on the wall. So 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was one of those Americans, loved Israel. I love to visit, but I'm very comfortable here now. That mentality no longer exists because the writing is so clear. Even the examples you gave of why some people shy away from moving, cost of living, rude Israelis. So even with the rude Israeli thing, I think that's such a stereotype. In all my times of visiting Israel, the only rude person I ever encountered was my Nasher driver from the airport to Yerushalayim, because one of the customers was pissing him off. But other than that, everyone is friendly. And if anyone from New York is going to play the rude card, that's like kettle and pot. I mean, no New Yorker can ever accuse anybody else of being rude. But here's the one difference. And again, cost of living, quality of life. Remember, here in New York, there's a mentality for people living in certain neighborhoods that they have to have the biggest house. In Israel, you don't even think like that. Whenever I visit there, I'm staying in an apartment. I don't even have cable TV, and I'm happy there. But the writing is clearly on the wall. Donald Trump will not be president forever. You're going to get other Republicans who are not as involved or engaged as he is. The left is going to come back at some point. And like I said earlier, the fact that we here in New York have a Mamdani who's in the lead, and he is supported by CARE, and CARE has the Council of American Islamic Relations. There was a video of them speaking about the long term. Now, for them to win New York City, it's not like running in South Bend, Indiana. New York City is the capital of America. It has the largest Jewish population. For Mamdani to win here is the equivalent of putting the ISIS flag on the White House. So the writing is so on the wall, and yet I think that we're missing it here.
It's true. I often say, if I had told you 10 years ago that there'd be anti-Semites in Congress and shuls would be vandalized and everything that we've seen, you would have said, there's no way that's going to happen in America. But I no longer say that. I now say, if I told you 1 week ago, that Jewish children would be kicked off of an airline and everything we've seen the last couple of weeks, Jews will be burned alive on the streets of the United States of America. I mean, the anti-Semitism we're seeing on a daily basis, literally on a daily basis, the Netherlands, I mean, it's all over. If I told you just a couple of weeks ago, you would have said there's no way. And here we are. So I don't really know what is left to happen. In other words, it seems to me that anything that, indicates that the writing is on the wall has happened already. The only thing that I can think of that hasn't happened yet, but we're darn close to it, is that anti-Semitism becomes fully institutionalized. But when we have it in Congress and we have, these protests and these marches, people holding terrorist flags and the police just standing there not doing anything, that's pretty close to being institutionalized. So I don't really know what's left to happen and what any Jew anywhere in the world other than Israel is waiting for.
Right. So exactly. I mean, again, you look at what's happening in Canada. Canada used to be such a friendly, polite nation that people who were threatening to leave America were going to go to Canada. Today, you have it in Toronto. You've got Jewish protesters who get arrested for protesting in support of Israel. Montreal, even worse. Canadian universities dominated by Students for Justice in Palestine. There's a whole movement of Jewish physicians from Canada who are leaving the country. So Canada is gone. France is gone. England is gone. America is gone. And all that's left, is Israel. Now, here's the thing, again, and you've spoken about this also at great length. I remember the protests over the judicial that Bibi wanted to strip some of the power from the Supreme Court because the Supreme Court there is corrupted. Right now in Israel, I know you've spoken about this, but what is the divide? How big is it? In America, if you're a Trump supporter, your Democrat friends will not speak to you any longer. In Israel, what is the mentality between those who support a Bibi and those who are anti?
So the Kaplan movement, the anti-Bibi crowd, is very vocal, very loud, and they strongly believe in their cause. They think Bibi is the worst thing. I mean, I didn't tell the story publicly. I think I wrote a post about it, but I was at the barber a couple of weeks ago, and the guy who before me was getting a haircut. They started talking about politics, and he literally said with a straight face, and I confirmed with him that he really believes this, that he said that Bibi is the worst thing that ever happened to the state of Israel. The worst thing, number one, worse than October 7th, worse than October 7th. I said, how could you say? He said, Bibi's done nothing good for this country. I said, nothing good, nothing, not Hezbollah, not Iran, nothing good. Nothing good. This is what they think. So, they're very, very passionate. They hate Bibi with a passion, much like those that hate Trump. And, it's the Trump derangement syndrome, it's the Netanyahu derangement syndrome. So there definitely is that. But, at the end of the day, this is something that's not spoken about and you'll never see in the media. But if you take the most right wing, or forget politics, you take the most ultra Orthodox Jew in Israel and put him in a room with the most secular Jew in Israel, and give them a list of 1,000 core values, they'll agree on 980 of them, right? And if I'm on the side of the road and I need help, an ultra-Orthodox Jew will stop and a secular Jew will stop. So at the end of the day, we're family. And yet families sometimes have disagreements, and sometimes the disagreements are pretty explosive, and this is one of them. And I don't think the Bibi thing or the judicial reform thing is the actual disease. I think it's the symptom. And the symptom of a disease that is, there are people who don't want this country to be a Jewish democracy. They want it to be a democracy, a liberal democracy like any other country. And they don't want any Jewish nature to this. And of course, then there's the majority of Israel that does want some sort of Jewish tradition to be preserved. And so there really is two states of Israel, and there was an actual mayor candidate for Tel Aviv that ran on that idea that Tel Aviv would be a separate state, the Tel Aviv state. So it's sad to see, but again, put it in perspective. At the end of the day, we have a lot more in common than we have different.
Okay, so let me ask you a question because we've got a few minutes left. One of the things that I'm seeing here in America is that while Trump is really bulldozing his way through the world, that there is almost a rush to get a peace deal done. Whether he was Syria, talk about what happens afterwards with the Palestinian Authority. He's done so much good, but it almost concerns me that he's trying to rush a peace deal through to add to the Abraham Accords. And this, of course, puts Israel in grave danger because you don't look, a month ago, we were talking about possibly having some type of relationship with the Syrian government. And then they went on and slaughtered the Druze. And of course, that ended that. So how much danger do you think that we're in now of, again, Trump, our biggest ally, trying to rush through peace deals that are premature?
It's hard to say because things change so fast. But as of today, Trump is pretty clear about the fact that he understands that Israel needs to do to Gaza, and this is what his administration said, not me, that Israel needs to do to Gaza what America did to Berlin and to Japan. I'm not implying that Israel should drop a nuclear bomb, of course, but I don't think anyone kids themselves that there's any chance of any sort of deal with Hamas. I think by now the administration understands that Hamas needs to be completely obliterated and decimated and just removed. And that's the only way to win this war. So again, this can change tomorrow, but as of now, I don't think Trump is going to force a deal with Hamas. I don't think he's that naive. I think he understands what we're dealing with here, and so he's letting Israel do what it needs to do to win this war.
Hillel Fuld, it is always an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for everything that you do. Have an easy and meaningful fast and continued hatzlacha.
Thank you so much, sir. It's great.